Every company is talking about having their own ecosystem. Google, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, everybody. You name it, they want to have their ecosystem of devices, services, and software that work perfectly in sync with each other. And these things are appealing on paper. The convenience of having all your data, all your applications available on all your devices at all time is super crucial. The problem is these also lock you in and try to prevent you from leaving, buying other devices. They're basically walled gardens, you heard that a lot. But I think we could build a Linux open source ecosystem of software and services. Let's see how we could do that. This video is brought to you by Safing's Portmaster. Safing is an open source company which aims to help users protect their privacy and focus on transparency. They developed the Portmaster, a privacy suite that lets you protect your network usage and give you system-wide ad and tracking blocking capabilities. It's open source, completely modular, and lets you see what the system is trying to send and block it either on a global setting or on a per-app basis. The Portmaster is and will always be free, and it gives you a super practical dashboard where you can monitor your general security level and status, and you can dive into the various connections your device is trying to make, like here the Epic Game Store calling some unwanted tracking URL. That's where you can move to the global and app settings and block any type of connection or set up filter lists. The Portmaster is still under development and is in alpha, but you can download it for free from safing.io. You can also ask anything you'd like to the Safing team, either on Reddit, via email, Twitter. Try Portmaster for yourself and let the team know what you think. Okay, so let's define what I would put inside that ecosystem. And that does not really include hardware, because hardware we can basically use anything that we want, slap Linux on it, and call it a day. Basically, we have the PinePhone, the PineTab, the PineTime, the Librem 5, any desktop or laptop we can choose. We can slap Linux on that and call it a day. So no need to wonder about hardware. What I'm looking at is software, and as of today, there are no real means, no real services that are fully open source and hosted, apart from self-hosted stuff, that you can sync with your Linux device, whether it be a laptop, desktop, phone, tablets, smartwatch, whatever. We have no open source service suite that a user could easily deploy in a few clicks, or just create an account on and start using on every single device that would grab automatically all the bookmarks from the browser, all the passwords, all the email accounts, all the photos, the documents, the videos, everything. There is no one-stop shop for all of this when you start using Linux. Apple has its iCloud account, Microsoft has the Microsoft account, the Amazon account allows you to sync everything, Google as well. But on Linux, we don't have a single service provider that allows us to do that. Now, obviously, we all know that there are issues with using a single provider for all of your data. Using Google is the perfect example. But I think that if we put this software and services ecosystem in the hands of a non-profit, which is not ad-based and does not depend on selling personal information, we could be good. And if that non-profit also offered a self-hosted version of that account, that would work perfectly as well. Now, obviously, these services would probably have to be paid for, to pay for maintenance, governance, updates, new features, working with the various desktop environments to make sure that they can sync to that account. There would be tons of work, and so it would probably deserve payment and compensation. Problem is, I think full-on ecosystems are terrible. And I know that's pretty paradoxical. That's because all ecosystems that we have access to today are locked, proprietary ecosystems that you can't get out of. Once you put your data inside Apple's iCloud, inside the Microsoft account, inside Google, pulling it out bit by bit is extremely painful. Regrabbing all your data and resyncing it with another service is designed to be super complex and not easy at all. You can't just say, hey, transfer all of this to another account, and they'll do it. No, they won't. Absolutely not, because they want you to keep using their services. That's how they make their money, with your data, with your files, or just because you pay them. Now, once you've bought, for example, into the Apple ecosystem, you've got a Mac, an iPhone, an iPad, an Apple Watch, getting out of this ecosystem is extremely painful, because you can just replace one of the devices. The Mac, the iPhone, the iPad, and the Apple Watch all work seamlessly together. If you replace the iPhone with an Android, well, you're gonna have problems, because you can't sync to your iCloud account on that. You can't automatically sync your photos, so you have to use another service, and this puts a small dent in the little well-oiled machine, which makes leaving impossible unless you change all of the devices and all of the services at once, which is extremely costly and extremely complex for most people. And yes, these ecosystems bring a ton to the table. You have fast syncing, you can find your files, your photos, your documents everywhere. You just enter, when you first get your new device, you just enter your one account and you grab automatically everything to your new device. You don't have to set up everything new, you grab all your applications or your settings. It's very, very convenient, I get it. But the cost is preventing you from deciding that a superior device is more worth of your money, because even if a better phone than your iPhone comes out, but it's not made by Apple, you're not going to buy it, because you want to keep your data inside that ecosystem, because if you don't, then you have to switch a bunch of other stuff on all of your machines, and the psychological and the time cost of this is just way too high. These ecosystems are traps, and they're designed to trap you. But I think a Linux open source software ecosystem might solve all of these issues. Now, open source is by definition open, and this means that building a walled garden with using exclusively open source is theoretically impossible. Anybody could grab that component that they need, fork it, and make sure that anybody else could have access to it. So you could basically not prevent people from building connectors to let you extract your data from the service that you opted in. It's just not feasible. Now, how would that ecosystem work? What could we use? Well, we already have Nextcloud, which is a fantastic first base to base our ecosystem on. It already has a fully complete web interface with notes, with reminders, with tasks, with an Office suite integrated, with an email client and a calendar. The only thing it's really missing is the software that lets you create your own email address and calendar. Now, what we really need is the piece that lets distributions plug into a defined ecosystem. A single sign-on that you can enter, like maybe using one of the cloud providers that GNOME provide. You just type your email, type your password, click enter, it's offering you everything that you've seen before, and you just check what you want to grab. It would be so simple. But creating all of that isn't the hard part. Creating the infrastructure for an email account, creating the infrastructure for storing your passwords, your bookmarks, your default applications, everything that you stored, is not that tricky, basically. It's just a database. The complexity comes from integrating all of that into the various desktop environments and distributions. Imagine, you log in to KDE. You have used Ubuntu previously, and then you're moved to Arch KDE. You just type the same email account and the same password than you used on Ubuntu, and it offers you a choice. Sync your password, sync your bookmarks, sync your files, sync your photos, sync your videos, sync your music. You check what you want, and it automatically downloads and populates all the folders for you. This would be very, very good. Imagine using a bind phone. You take a picture, it syncs automatically, and boom, inside your Linux desktop. You can do that already with plenty of various applications that you can install, but there is no unified thing. You have to set up plenty of different accounts, and that's just not as convenient. And obviously, this is a ton of work. Creating the structure, creating the infrastructure, working with various desktop environments to make sure that they can integrate this, working with distributions to make sure that they ship this part of the desktop environment. The issue is the time of work it would require, the cooperation of every single desktop environment and distro to make sure that this is universally accessible. It could be pretty tricky. So now it's just an idea. It's just an idea I'm spouting out with my no developer knowledge at all and my non-implication into any specific project. So obviously it's easy to spout that in front of a video and wait for people to do it for me. That's the easy part of my job. But the thing is, imagine you buy a new Lenovo ThinkPad and you know you're gonna have to install your distro of choice on it. Maybe it's Fedora and pre-installed, but maybe not. And then you're gonna have to install all your applications, re-log in into all of your accounts, start syncing all your files or your data, or even worse, copy-paste them to a USB key and paste them in the right files. It's a pain, it's a chore, and if you go the USB key route, it's not even a complete solution, because if you use two machines or two devices at the same time, you're gonna have a problem to keep those in sync. So it's painful to do. Imagine sitting in front of that new laptop, and in the GNOME or KDE welcome window, you just type one account that you've already used on your other machines. You select the services you want to sync, the files, the bookmarks, the folders, the videos, the passwords, the config files for application X or Y. You click OK, and then just a little spinner in the notification menu, and it's all downloading, it's all there. That's the convenience that we need to have on Linux. We need to have this kind of integration and syncing between devices. It is mandatory. People have come to expect this. And if we want the Linux desktop to succeed, if we want the Linux phone to succeed, the Linux smartwatch, the Linux tablet, we need this syncing solution. I'm all for using a libhandified GNOME on my Pine tab or on my tablet, if I can ever install it on that Galaxy Tab A that I have in front of me for some reason, that would be fantastic. But if I cannot sync the photos I take on my smartphone to my computer easily without using another application that might never get developed for my own device, then why would I bother? I'm gonna stick to Android, or I'm gonna stick to Apple, or I'm gonna stick to Microsoft. Obviously, I'm not gonna move because it's not convenient. I've gotten used to that convenience and I want it wherever I go. And I think we, as the Linux community as a whole, we really need to work on something that solves these issues. So what do you think about this? Do we need a Linux software services ecosystem? Do we not need that and should use various providers? Should we all plug into Google inside of our Linux machines? Let me know down there in the comments. If you liked the video, don't hesitate to give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, thumbs down also works. And you can also subscribe and turn on notifications if you want more opinion pieces like this one. If you really like the video and you want to help the channel grow, you can also join my amazing Patreon subscribers and YouTube members and get access to a monthly exclusive patroncast and the right to vote on the next topics I'll cover next month. Take a look at the links in the description below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!